And I think we should just roll right into the workshop since we can. Let's see if we can get Alma on. Yeah, let's actually.
I see Monica.
Yeah, there's already. Monica. Monica, is Sylvia here too?
She is. She's here.
Okay, beautiful. Wonder if we can get co-presenters up on the screen at all. Okay, well, Monica, I'm just going to turn it over to you and you just let me know what you need.
Okay, fantastic. Well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you all tonight. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see, I was able to, yes, here it is. Give me just one moment. And put up a slideshow here. So we're looking forward to this conversation this evening. There are a few top topics for the board to discuss. We're going to start with some brief introductions since it's our first official gathering with you all. Want to discuss with the board your shared purpose in carrying out the superintendent search. It's really important for the Alma executive search process that the board is aligned at every step of the process. And that starts with clarifying what your shared purpose is and how you want to carry out the search. And we want to discuss the different roles that are participating in this process, the role of the board versus the role of the search committee. We want to discuss that and get clarity on that. In addition, we'll be discussing the search timeline and get your feedback on community engagement, in particular, our visit that we're planning for the end of the month. So first, a little bit of information about Alma Advisory Group. We are a mission-driven consulting firm. I founded Alma 6.5 years ago now. And we have worked with school systems all over the country as they work to attract, develop, and retain a great staff, and perhaps more importantly, create the conditions where people can really do their best work on behalf of the students that they serve. We have developed teacher hiring systems at scale, school leader pipeline and development systems at scale. And it was a very natural step forward for Alma several years ago to move into the executive search space. Our work in executive search in education has been at the C-suite and above, chief level positions, assistant and deputy superintendent and CEO level roles. And what we found is that the fundamental best practices that help systems improve diversity and equity in hiring for teachers and principals provide the same result at the superintendent and senior level leadership roles. So we focus a great deal on capacity building. We focus on mitigating bias at every stage of the process. And we focus on ensuring that the process is really guided and grounded in the competencies most critical to the role, that we create rigorous screening processes that measure those skills and nothing else. And what we find is you elevate the rigor of your screening processes, and over again, we found more leaders of color emerge as finalists. And the reason is because we've mitigated the bias that tends to work against leaders of color in hiring processes like this one. So we care as much about our process as we do about finding you great talent to fill your leadership roles. We have a talented, awesome team that's supporting this search. I am leading this search as the CEO of Alma. Sylvia Flowers, who's with me today, is like my right-hand person on this search. So she is really managing and supervising our team day to day as they go out and work on this search. Venus Velez will be with us at the end of the month, and she is coordinating community engagement in this process. Nita Lasapankol will be supporting analysis of our community survey, which we'll be talking about in a moment. She also supports sourcing for the role. And Naja Thompson is our head recruiter. He is out researching potential candidates, talking to different candidates, and he will be working with Sylvia and myself as we're screening candidates throughout the process. So wanted to take a moment to discuss your shared purpose, and what I'm about to share is really like a starter statement for your consideration. What we want you to think about is what do you want to make sure that you get right as you carry out this critical search. A superintendent search is the most important decision a board has to make, and selecting the next leader of the district. And we want to take time before we begin to discuss your shared purpose in this work. So I'm going to put this statement up here for you all to review. So I'd love to give you all a minute just on your own to reflect on what you see up here, what feels like it might be missing, what feels like it's really hitting the mark, what you would like to add or change about this statement. And we're hoping to hear from each of the board members as we discuss.
Monica, would you like me to look for hands and call on folks?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, beautiful. Would anybody like to contribute? Yeah, Board Member Victor.
I think it's critical that our purpose include our value and focus on equity and elevating marginalized students and staff in our community.
Thank you. Who else? Yeah, Board Member Alice. Yep.
Thank you. I am just wondering what would be done to hear from student voices. As a student in this community, I think it is easily looked over, students' understanding of like interactions with the superintendent, relations with the superintendent. And I just really want that to be a part of the process of hearing from students, understanding student relations with like superintendent issues, and just, understanding how big of a part of the community they are.
Ms. Bondo?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Monica. So I have a couple goals here. I think the visionary and innovative leaders that I want to see who value transparency and also accountability based on the decision which are best for the students. Yes. And also I see, because I've been all the time struggling with the communication pieces around the management team or the operational team and the central office with the large community. And I think for that transparency or the superintendent search, I really need to see the improvement as a communicator and a relationship builder.
Thank you, Ms. Bondo.
All right, thank you.
Is there anything else anyone would like to add?
Yeah.
Ms. Billy?
Hi, sorry, it's taking me a little while. I think it's good to also add somebody that is a transformative leader and somebody that has the capacity to understand sorry, just collecting myself. To understand white supremacy culture and how systems that reflect white supremacist culture work within the school system, and ways to help their staff and their teachers navigate those systems and those cultures that they will essentially have to deal with, both as folks existing in these cultures or these environments.
Thank you. Anyone else? Monica, I'm not seeing any other hands in the room right now.
Okay, thank you so much. So our team will go back and we will incorporate your feedback here. We'll bring this back to our next workshop for continued feedback as well. So
one second, Monica, there is one last question. Board Member Opperman?
Sure.
Hello, Monica. A question, may we, as we think on this, send other things to you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anytime at all. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. So, what I wanted to do now is to speak a little bit about the various roles between the board, between Alma as your search firm, and your search committee in this process. And I wanted to start first with the role of the search firm versus the role of the board, and really want to answer any questions that you have about this, add anything that feels important or that's an expectation you have that isn't coming across clearly here, or any question that you have about the role of the board. And on my next slide, we'll be talking about the role of the board versus the role of your search committee. So first of all, in terms of the search firm, we are really working to engage the community. Really appreciate the comment about ensuring that student voice is well represented. It's important to us that we hear from as many members of your community as possible. We'll talk a little bit about our visit at the end of the month, but it's our goal and our expectation that the Alma team will engage in authentic conversations with a well-represented group of representatives of your community, to work to clarify the top skills needed for this role. So just as Board Member Bando and Board Member Biliu got us started there, really understanding what's most important for this leader to be able to demonstrate. It's our responsibility to recruit strong candidates into the role, and to bring you a strong and diverse group of candidates to consider. It's our role to design an equitable, transparent, and rigorous hiring process. We also are working with candidates at each stage of the process, ensuring that they understand what's occurring, timeline, what they can expect when. And we facilitate the board's decision-making at each juncture, even though this says final decision-making. We're working with you at every key decision point in the process, and we'll be demonstrating that a little bit tonight. Finally, we will assist you in using the information gained in this process to help inform induction and transition planning, onboarding support for your selected superintendent. What we look for the board is that you really are setting the direction. You're ensuring the success of the process. As you'll see on the next slide, you are the final decision makers. So you're really taking in all of the information gathered throughout this process and coming to bringing your collective minds together to make the decision on who the next superintendent will be. To assist in that, you will identify what groups of stakeholders we should engage. You will identify for us the people that we should be contacting to help us spread the word for our visits and for our survey and all the different opportunities to participate. You're ensuring that we are able to provide that transparent communication. As Chair Lentz mentioned a moment ago, creating a space on the website, ensuring that information is out there through all of the district's natural communication channels. And as media requests occur, the board usually is in charge of handling any media response or determining the best way to do that. We expect the board to actively participate in all aspects of this process. So when we're choosing dates for workshops, we want to make sure that they're dates that all board members, wherever possible, are able to participate, because we want to ensure that board members really understand and feel they have each truly informed this process and have been able to guide the process and therefore trust the outcomes of the process. So I'll pause there just to see if there are any questions about the role of the search firm versus the role of the board in this process. And Chair Lentz, I'll look to you again to identify any raised hands in the room.
I don't see any raised hands here. I did, Monica, just want to ask if you would also be kind of like addressing the committee role versus the board.
Yes, that's my next step here. So thank you for that. So we look at the search committee versus the board. This is a really somewhat unique structure that the board has put in place here. We think it's great. We noticed it when we were first invited to apply to support the search. And we love the well-rounded nature of the committee that you, in your search committee, have several board members, but you also have teachers and staff, you have students, you have community members. So we really appreciate the thought that went into who even is part of this process. We think there's huge benefit in the search committee providing a voice of guidance to the board and creating better connectivity between the board and the community in terms of, ensuring that you really are reflecting the voice of the community in this process, that you're tuned in to what the community is truly desiring at each stage in this process. That said, we think it's very important that the roles between the board and the search committee are clear, and that the search committee has clear understanding of what their expectations are, what's being asked of them and what they're expected to do versus the role that the board will play. So this here in front of you is really a proposal up for discussion. Our understanding is that the role of the search committee hasn't yet been fully defined. So based on our experience, we wanted to put this up here for your review and your conversation. I'll start, since we discussed a little bit the role of the board, I'll start here on the right side of the screen with the role of the search committee. So we see the search committee as essential at advising on community engagement, helping to identify stakeholders and support outreach for our visit, for the completion of the survey, and really throughout the process. When we develop the job profile, we're going to look to the search committee to pressure test that job profile and provide feedback to the board to ensure that the job profile really is reflecting what the community is asking for. We will work with the search committee to brainstorm interview activities and questions to brainstorm real life scenarios that kind of test out the specific skills that you're looking for in your next leader. And we would recommend having the search committee serve as a community panel at the finalist stage in the process. So the panel would have the opportunity to interview finalists. We have a recommendation that the committee meet with the board before the board's final deliberation. That's a decision you can make as you decide on the full screening process. But we think giving the search committee a private audience with the board to share their feedback on the process and to share their thoughts on the finalists could be really beneficial. We think this kind of participation requires probably a monthly or twice per month cadence of meetings with the Alma team as we get through our search process. In comparison, the board is really focused on setting the direction for the process. So we would look to the board to review community feedback. They would brainstorm and use that input to create the first draft of the profile. I think that's a decision point. You could have the committee create the draft and the board refine it. We think it's better for the board to do this first, because at every stage of the process, we're working to align and calibrate each of the board members around the skill sets required for the role. As I mentioned earlier, you also ensure that appropriate outreach and engage the media. And ultimately, you're taking in all of the input from the committee, but also the input from all other stakeholders who we hope will participate in this process, and using all of that insight to make the final superintendent selection. We would foresee the board meeting at least monthly in this process. So let me pause here, take any questions, reactions, feedback from the group.
Any questions from the board? Okay, I don't see any. I just want to note that I appreciate that the board would develop the profile first before sending it to the committee for feedback. I think that makes a lot of sense, but also does engage all of the people on the board and the committee. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm wondering if
one question, Monica. Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Thanks, Monica. I just thought of this when Chair Lentz was talking. I just was curious in the piece with the board, when you suggested the likely meeting monthly, were you imagining that Alma coming and being part of being on the agenda for a full board meeting? That would be a way that we would be engaging regularly. Was that what you were imagining?
Yeah, so we're trying to determine the best way to do this. And I think if there may be a key juncture where it makes sense for me to be there in person with you all, or for members of my team to be there in person. For the more regular meetings, most likely I will be virtual just to save on travel expenses, but it depends. And we're actually going to go through the timeline in a moment. And there are a few that we can discuss if there are key meetings where it would be helpful for everyone to be together in a room. And that would include the Alma team.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Board Member Bondo, and then I'll come to Board Member Bryden. Ms. Bondo.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, Monica, I just want to go back on the search committee. The second bullet provides feedback on the job profile. So those feedback is going to be from each committee members based on their own values and principles, or it's going to be a reflection of the community engagement?
Yeah, so I would say it's a little bit of both. And what's going to happen is we're going to come on site, we're going to meet with people, and we'll be talking a little bit about that. And before we begin building the profile, I think, we would be reporting back on what we heard from the community. And so the board would take that insight, and the search committee would also take that insight as they come together with their ultimate feedback on the job profile.
Okay, all right, makes sense. Thank you.
You would have both. That said, I do think people are going to speak from what's most important to them, but we'll have all of that information to inform what we're doing. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Board Member Bryden.
Thank you, Chair. So I have a logistics question in follow-up or clarification to Board Member Russell Better's question. The conversation about the monthly cadence of meetings. I'm wondering whether that would be, as Board Member Russell Better was alluding to, during an existing board meeting, or would it be an additional meeting on the calendar? I'd like clarity on that.
Yeah, Chair Lentz, do you want to talk about what we think could work there?
Yeah, so I think our intention is to do them with board meetings as much as possible. Some of those might be workshops, some of those might be executive sessions. It will depend on the content of those meetings, but to align them with existing meetings as much as possible.
Thank you.
Okay, I see no more questions here, Monica. Back to you.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. So let's talk about the search timeline and community engagement. And I'm wondering, Sylvia, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you want to talk us through this part of the session? Okay.
Sure. All right. So we are at the beginning of January, which really we are starting our planning for the stakeholder engagement. We forecasted about a 4.5 month timeline to get from start to finish. We are also building our internal project team and our internal project plan. And we've already scheduled tentatively, well, we have confirmed the January 30th and 31st dates for the in-person community gatherings. And then we're reserving February 2nd for a virtual community gathering. As Monica mentioned, this part of our process really helps shape the job profile, job description, and our recruitment and screening process. You all should have received last week a request to begin thinking about key stakeholders that we would want to meet while we're on site. And then we're also working with Grace to plan out those community engagement sessions as well. From there, once we draft the job description and profile that you all and the search committee will review and approve, we begin our recruitment and screening process, posting the job description far and wide, and begin having both interest calls and thinking about the selection process in detail. We anticipate that March will be that heavy time for interviews and screening. During that time, we will be working with the committee, as Monica mentioned, to develop the types of interview activities and real life scenarios that we'll want to use in our screening process. Then we'll actually make some of the decisions about the number of steps in the screening process and so forth. We anticipate we'd get to the finalist round by April. And at that point, we really would love to introduce a broad stakeholder group to the finalist round interview process, with the thought that by the end of April, beginning of May, we have identified our final candidate, and then we're beginning the offer and induction and transition planning. Any questions on this high-level timeline?
Yeah, Board Member Youssef.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe I missed, did you say the community engagement is virtual?
We will be on site on January 30th and 31st, Board Member Youssef, and then we're going to do a virtual session on February 2nd.
Thank you.
And during the day, we typically do a lot of our interviews and focus groups with other stakeholders. So at that point, we'll be hoping to meet with key constituents that you all have identified. Hopefully we'll have some principal focus groups, some teacher focus groups, central office staff member focus groups that we'll do during the day before our community engagement, our community gatherings in the evenings.
Yeah, Board Member Billiou.
How are you all planning to collect that information? Like, in what form, I guess, will you present it in, if that makes sense?
Yeah, Sylvia, shall we move to the community engagement part of this?
Sure.
And then we can come back.
So the three primary activities for community input are the community gathering that I mentioned we've scheduled already, and we're planning to be on site. We'll also be doing focus groups and interviews. We have our one-on-one interviews with each of you that we hope to get through in the next couple of weeks. And then focus groups and interviews with other key stakeholders that will take place during the day on the 30th and 31st. And then lastly, we want to send a community survey out and leave that open for about a 3-week period to make sure that we get as much participation as possible. So those are the 3 activities that we are proposing for community engagement. What our team does is then we go through all of the qualitative notes from those conversations and meetings along with the survey information, and we'll report back to the board and the search committee on what the big themes were from those conversations.
That's right. So go ahead.
Hi, Sylvia and Julie Opperman. I have a question on how the community surveys and the student surveys are created. How are they designed? What's your basis on those?
Yeah, so we typically, it is generally a short survey. We're going to be asking the community and key stakeholders what's most important to them. What are the key priorities that this next person should be prepared to lead through? And then what are the characteristics or skills or competencies that people believe are most important in this role? We'll have some demographic information as well, and we'll want to know, are we getting as much input from the community as possible? And that'll help us determine how we continue to push it out, whether we need to leave it open and things of that nature. Generally, we found that we'll use your support to push that out far and wide and to really love to make sure that students, parents, teachers, staff, community partners are also helping us make sure that that survey is done.
Are the questions designed all open, or are they focused with multiple choice and et cetera?
Yes, typically we'll talk about, we're going to prepare a draft survey for you to give us feedback on. Typically we're asking about, what is most important to least important. So asking the community to rate things on level of importance. And that's generally what we're expecting back, and that's how we'll report it to you. What the community felt was most important in the role, and what's most important from the priority list of the things that a superintendent must do or lead.
Thank you.
There's typically an open-ended question at the end for any additional information that people want to share.
And just on that note, we've already been in touch with Grace just to make sure that we are translating those surveys and have a plan to both engage our multilingual families in the surveys, but also in the community gatherings and the focus groups. So that planning is also underway. Board Member Bondo, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you, Chair. You already answered some of my questions here about the translation of the survey. So I have some other clarify questions here, Monique. For the survey, if we are okay, let me rephrase this. My thought is that to be considered to be more inclusive for the survey. What do you have any specific numbers of the results then you're expecting to receive, then you can fully consider that those are results from those surveys being inclusive, or it's just a few number, then you may see then it's really reflecting the large population. The reason that I say that is just because of a lot of community, especially marginalized communities, we've been having a really hard time to reach out. The multilingual office is so limited on some other aspect to go really more deeper to reach out the most of our population so they can have a clear feedback about the impact of the new superintendent, because it's really reflecting the values of the students in our building. So I'm just wondering how those surveys beside of the multilingual, are we going to go a little more further to reach out the most vulnerable families who never been reached out before, or they never get their voice on the table? They never been, attempting to be engaged or involved to any capacity how their voice can be heard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we want to leverage as many community partners, as many folks as possible to help us get responses to this survey. So we're working closely with the multilingual office. We want your input on who we need to reach out to, whether it's civic leaders, community organizations, faith leaders, to make sure that we're all sharing this survey as broadly as possible and creating those opportunities, even in other meetings that we're not a part of, even if you can dedicate some time for people to take the survey, sending it out via your other mechanisms, such as text messages to parents, robocalls to parents, and things like that. We'll be wanting to leverage as many ways as possible to get this out.
Can we
we'll
also use,
be
because some of the
monitoring
families...
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're using different tools to reach out to those. I mean, to make sure that we can, sending those surveys to the people, because some people, they like the hard copy, they can answer those questions, because they cannot use email, because we cannot, some of them, they cannot really go with the text and start answering. So I think using some of the face-to-face and, do some outreach on the paper, so people can answer those surveys on the paper, because some of the people can read much better, understand those questions while they have those paper on hands, and then, sending those questions back to the team. I think some of those considerations need to be taking place.
Thank you. I appreciate that suggestion. And it's something we also hope to discuss with the search committee, where I think we have a tentative meeting for Thursday as well. And we will, as Sylvia mentioned, one of the things we wanted to do after today's conversation is to get a drafted survey to each of you for your feedback. And we'll also be able to share the plan for getting the word out. The most important thing that we've learned is, each of you as board members will know individuals in the community who are close to those marginalized populations and can help us spread the word and get information out to people, and can also even give us guidance on how best to reach individuals. We also have had a lot of luck when we're able to use the district's tools, robocall, or some districts are able to text parents. They're all different communication tools. So we're hoping to work with the district with the tools that they have, and that has helped us a great deal in the past. We will also look at media, news, radio, the things that your community engages with, where we might be able to reach people as well. And once the surveys are coming back in, we will ask some demographic information. So we'll have a sense early on whether or not the population responding is representative of your community or not. And so we have had situations where we've extended deadlines, where we've doubled down in our communication strategy if we felt like we weren't getting the responsiveness that we were looking for. So I really appreciate the push, and we'll be looking for all of those things. And I think having paper surveys is something we can definitely go back and discuss with Grace Valenzuela to see if there's a way to do that, and how and where we would make those accessible. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, Board Member Bryden.
Thank you, Chair. So looking at the slide, it seems as though the three tiles here are in chronological order. And I'm asking about that because I I'm sort of wishing that the staff and community survey was at the beginning, so that if anybody responding to the survey provided especially insightful responses or something that needed follow-up and also chose to share their contact information, it would be great to be able to, during the on-site, the 30th and 31st, reach out to those people and have, thorough conversations with them. But I think what I'm seeing is that that's not going to be possible. Is that correct?
No, I actually think if we get a draft to you and to the search committee this week, I think we could be prepared to launch the survey before our site visit. Ideally, we'll have it launched by, the middle of January. If we can reach consensus, we could at least have the website available. We'll have the survey available on the website. We'll start the broad communication about the survey, and then the survey can stay open beyond our site visit time. So that we make sure we have, ample time for it to be shared throughout. Okay. So
the
they're not in
sort of run concurrently.
chronological order. No.
Okay, super. Thank you so much.
No, we'd like to launch the survey as fast as possible. And we expect the survey to stay open until a little bit after our site visit, because the site visit will also encourage more participation and help spread the word, just the fact that we're there. So we will likely close it after our visit, but we will have a very quick turnaround to get feedback and analysis back to you all, because the information gained will then inform the job profile, and we want to move as quickly as we can on that.
Beautiful. Any other questions? Yeah, board member Billy.
I guess to add to Ms. Bondo's point about just like reference and having folks understand, I guess, even the job, because a lot of times when you're asking people to give input about a position, they might not actually understand or have the capacity to know what that position is. So I'm wondering if there's opportunity to like maybe add that in the survey so people have an understanding of what a superintendent's role is. So they're not like, adding their wildest dreams, or they have like at least a spectrum of like understanding. Because I think that goes a long way for at least some of the multicultural folks that might not like have a really good grasp of what the extent of the roles are.
Yes, we totally agree. We know that even in our community gatherings, we typically open with sort of making sure that people understand and that we define the role of the superintendent. We know for parents, their first line of communication is typically their child's teacher and then the principal in the school. So we do a lot of that context setting before we dive into the conversations, and we can certainly add some of that language to kind of the survey opening introduction as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions in the room? No other questions, Monica and Sylvia. Oh, just kidding. There's a question.
Just a quick question. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. The 3 community gathering, is that also when you guys will do the one-on-one interviews, or the interviews with teachers and students can be done virtual?
Yeah, so we'll make time during the day for focus groups and interviews of key stakeholders. And then our evenings will be for the community gatherings. And then we, of course, will be available to continue any meetings after that if we don't get a chance to meet with everybody in person. So we can continue to do those virtually as well. But we want to have a packed schedule for our 2 days.
No more questions here.
Great. So, how will we use this community input? And someone was asking a little bit earlier about how we collect this information. We're gathering our information. We want our community meetings to be as safe as possible for people to really share their lived experiences with us. So we do try to protect the confidentiality of each of our conversations. Even in our larger community gatherings, we'll break out into smaller groups for discussion so that people really have the space to share. It also creates more equity of voice in the process, where you don't just have the one person who has the mic, but everyone in the room is able to actively participate based on the way we structure the conversations. So we will use the insights gained in these focus groups, interviews, surveys, community gatherings to inform the role description and the competencies that we will use to recruit and screen the candidates. We will leverage examples shared by stakeholders to inform the screening activities that we ultimately use. And we will come back to the board and to the search committee to find ways to incorporate community input in the finalist stage of the process. Where possible. That input would be reviewed by the board to inform their final decision. So we've already talked about some of these things, but just want to share that there are some real challenges that we might encounter here, and really welcome your thoughts on how best to avoid these potential pitfalls. One is to ensure that people know we're coming and that they're able to participate. So having these dates now out there, January 30th and 31st and February 2nd, we hope we have a little bit of time to be able to get the word out to as many people as possible. Really appreciate Board Member Bando's suggestion about how to make the survey as accessible as possible. We really want to find unique channels that enable full participation. So for us, we'd like to go out to the different communities as much as we can. We'd like to work with community leaders, religious leaders, anyone in the community that has close connection to members of the community to help us spread the word about our meetings. And then, we do have some time constraints where we are under some pressure. We want to get the profile out in by early to mid February if we can. And so for us, we want to be very strategic in our meetings. We don't want to have 50 meetings with one or two people in them. Where it makes sense, we'd like to combine groups, to have focus groups of smaller groupings, but allowing us to meet with as many people as possible with the time that we have. So again, we'll have our 2 full days on site. We do have the ability to have meetings with stakeholders outside of those 2 days in a more virtual setting. We're working with a district where we're having kind of office hours or, with different employee groups so that we can meet with people when it works for them. So we're really open on those possibilities, and we'll look to your guidance for how to make this process as accessible as possible. So there are a few kind of decision points, given the timing, we actually think it's okay to wait for community feedback in January before completing the job profile, but this really is a decision for the board to make. We certainly have worked with boards who have wanted to get the profile out as fast as possible, and so have created a profile based on their best understanding. And in this case, we would use the board and the search committee, and then incorporate the feedback from community once we've been able to do that. So wanted to check with you on that. Wanted to check with you on the frequency of meetings with the board and with the search committee. So those are our top questions for you. We'll take any additional questions from the group, and then would love your thoughts on these 3 decision points.
I think let's start with any general questions that haven't been answered. If there's any general questions, and then we can go through those 3 questions.
What would be the best way to communicate with you if the time constraint and you could not cover the or meet the community?
Yeah, so the survey is really going to be the best way for people to communicate with us. We can create an email address that anyone can use at any time to send any thoughts or feedback to us as well. The best way to prevent this would be to ensure that we have all of your thoughts on who we want to make sure that we meet with, and that we're establishing the schedule for those meetings when we're on site. But we will always be open to feedback and input from the community throughout the process.
Does that feel like it answered your question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Great. Any other questions? No? Okay. Monica, do you want to lead us through these 3?
Yes, sure. So, this first decision point is it's really considering the urgency for getting the job posting advertised. And so right now, we're planning on meeting with the community at the end of January. We would most likely 1 to 2 weeks after those visits and the closure of the survey, we'd be able to really discuss what the feedback shared and what we think the implications are for the job profile. So if you wait for community feedback, you're really looking at somewhere around February 16th or 17th to have the job profile complete and ready to post. The alternative is we're meeting one-on-one with each board member. We're engaging with the search committee this week, and we can gather from each of you all what your top priorities are for the role and create a profile sooner rather than later for your review. I think the end result would be having a posting ready about the 3rd week of January instead of February 16th. So it'd be about a 3-week potential time difference in getting a posting out there. I do want to say at the same time, we are talking to candidates, but we don't have the benefit of the job profile created while we're doing that.
What do people
So
think?
Yeah,
Board Member Bergen?
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to say, I think we should wait because the alternative, yes, 3 weeks faster would be great, but then what's the point of getting community feedback if we're not going to really incorporate it into the job posting? So I would vote that we wait.
Board Member Opperman?
Thank you, Chair. I actually would go the opposite direction only because there are so many people who want to do hiring of superintendents. If you look at the nationally, that we may get behind in something. I would think that the profile, while it would be comprehensive, it wouldn't necessarily focus on exactly the ideal person. So that would be my thought on that.
Oh, thank you. Board Member Bondo?
Thank you, Chair. So I have 2 clarification questions, Monica. If we go with the first option, I mean, with the second option, having a draft of the job profile just for the timing, and then when we getting the community feedback, are you going to use those feedback for interviews or for the next step process? I just want to see how everything can be related because I really want the community feedback to be included. So if we come to draft the job profile the first, step, do we have any capacity after the community feedback just to have a sense, like, that comprehensive job profile can be readapted with the community feedback, or are you going to use the community feedbacks to go over the interview with any specific candidates?
Yes, so but we can revise the profile at any time, and I would recommend that once the community feedback comes in, that the board would then review, and the search committee would review the job profile with the feedback in mind to see what adjustments you would make. So you would be able to make revisions. The real big benefit of community engagement, if you do the posting first, is that the community engagement really helps strengthen our screening processes, our interview processes, as we're recruiting and screening candidates. So the feedback is definitely still utilized. It's not utilized at the front end. It's more, at the back end of the process.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Grant?
Thank you. I guess I can see it both ways. So I guess what I really want to hear is what Alma has to say. Does that 3 weeks make a big difference in the type and quality of candidates you think we'll be able to recruit?
Thank you. Our perspective, and Sylvia, I'll let you weigh in on this too. Our perspective is that actually the 3 weeks are okay, that the time difference is not going to be dramatic. And because Alma's already researching, networking, reaching out to candidates, we don't have to wait to begin recruiting until the profile is done. It's just that the casting the net and really getting the postings out far and wide will be delayed till mid-February. So we're okay with waiting. We think the real decision point for the board, and it's do you feel like you have enough information between yourselves and the search committee to be able to really capture the role comprehensively? I also have to say, you want to consider where you are right now in your relationships with the community, and if there is a sense of, I think that, I guess just very candidly, I think in the situation where you're in the midst of a difficult moment for the district, that having the opportunity for people to have their voices heard at this stage, and to know how their voices will be used, will benefit you greatly in setting up the next leader for success. So our preference would be to go ahead and wait, because we think it serves multiple purposes, not just informing the profile itself, but also a little bit of, helping to strengthen the connection between the board at the community and the community at this initial stage of this process. So that's my thought on this based on the unique context right now in Portland. Sylvia, anything you would add there?
No, I was thinking the same thing. I mean, I think the community input from our perspective as we're recruiting really helps us tell the story of Portland, Maine. As Board Member Upperman mentioned, there's going to be a lot of superintendent postings right now. So the general, what does a superintendent do? People are going to know what that is. As we're out recruiting, we want to tell the story. What are we hearing from the community? And that's what that community input certainly helps from my personal, perspective. And I think Monica's right in terms of some of the comments that were made earlier around transparency, around making sure that those interactions are clear, making sure that the community is elevated, particularly marginalized community members. There may be more of a rationale to wait, if that's what this board is really signaling as a core value.
I'm not sure you can see Sylvia, but I'm seeing several heads nodding along with you. So I think that I'm getting the sense in this room that people are feeling like waiting to get more input from the community is making sense. Is there anybody that's opposed to that in this room? No. Okay. So I think we're in close to agreement here to wait.
All right. Excellent. Great. So then I want to then ask the question about how often we want to meet with the board versus the search committee. And here, essentially, Alma's work comes together and really requires biweekly conversations. And there was a slide here. Let's see if I can pull it up for you. This kind of lays out the different meeting and the different activities that occur at key meetings here. So we do want to confirm community engagement questions that will ask during our focus groups, get feedback on the survey. Eventually, we'll want to discuss the steps of screening and selection. We'll want to draft and confirm the job profile. We'll want to design the interview questions and activities. We will all want to engage in anti-bias training. Anyone who participates as an interviewer will take part in that. We'll want to discuss how we'll do our finalist stage, who will meet with the candidates and what that looks like. And then, of course, we'll have your finalist interviews and you debrief those interviews. So all of this adds up to about 2 meetings a month. And the question is, we can have the search committee really drive a lot of this work and bring it to the board for review and refinement, or we can have the board drive a lot of this work and bring it to the search committee for review and refinement. And so just, I think it's up for us to discuss which you prefer. We don't have a strong opinion on this. We just want to make sure the search committee is clear on their role and that it's very clear the board is the decision maker. And we really would need the board to be the ones deciding who's moving forward in the various stages of the process. Other than that, how things get designed is really up to you, the board. And I think the give and take here is about how deeply involved as a board you want to be in crafting every part of this process. Do you want to be at the front end of it and getting feedback from the search committee, or do you want your search committee to be at the front end of it, recognizing there are some board members on the search committee, and then you're reviewing and making sure it meets your needs? The implication is that whoever is really driving a lot of the design work is probably meeting with us biweekly, every other week. And the group that's doing more of the review work and refinement is probably meeting with us once a month. So I'll turn it over to the group for your reactions.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Board Chair. My question is not to you, but to the members of the board who are on the committee as to how intensely involved the group of search committee is at this point. And can anyone let me know?
Yeah, I'm happy to respond. And Emily, if you want to add as well. It's really, really high engagement. We've had almost, I think, full attendance at all the meetings so far. Great engagement over email. Would you add anything, Board Member Victor?
I just say that the committee brings, I'd say, a wider range of experience and viewpoints and expertise than I would say the board does. So, and the engagement around specific tasks has been very high.
That's
yeah, I agree. Ms. Bondo?
Thank you, Chair. So my opinion, I'm leaning to the search community, leading the most of the key activities and bringing back to the full board for review. Just because we have, I think, enough board member already in the search committee, and we have that's about the trust, and also the search committee is reflecting the community, the student voice, and the staff voice, and I think that's what I'm leaning to, and bringing back to the board for review and recommendation for next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bando. Any other thoughts on that about preference?
Yeah, I think the committee is probably a better route to go, just because I think it's better to have somebody else be more focused, being that we have a lot of other things to discuss as well as a full board. And I think the committee has more or better representation than we do on the board. So yeah, I think that route works better for me.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, that's what you're going to say too, Board Member Youssef? Okay, beautiful. So what I'm hearing is it sounds like people would prefer the search committee to be meeting more frequently and to bring their findings back to the board. Is there anybody in disagreement with that plan? I didn't see your head at all. I'm sorry. Are you in agreement with that? Okay, beautiful. So it looks like the search committee will be meeting twice a month and the board once a month.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we will work with you, Chair Lentz, to confirm the schedules, and we're meeting with the search committee this Thursday, so we should be able to confirm the schedule of meetings with them at that point in time as well. And we'll make sure with once a month, it will be much easier to be able to use, hopefully, to be able to use the meeting time the board already has set for our meetings as well. Fantastic. Well, that was everything we had to cover this evening. Sylvia, am I missing anything? No,
I think so.
That's everything on our list. So we really appreciate it. In summary, we're hearing a decision to have community feedback come first with a target of posting the position by mid-February. We're also hearing the search committee really driving a lot of the design work and bringing it to the board for review, refinement, finalization. So the committee would meet about every 2 weeks, and we would expect to meet with the board about once a month. And we'll build that into our project plan and come back to you. We expect to bring you a draft survey within the next 24 hours, right, Sylvia? Within the next 24 hours. And so our hope would be to get the feedback on that survey. If we can have it by next Monday at the latest, I think we'll be in good shape to launch the survey by the end of next week. So that's kind of what we're targeting there. And then we're very much looking for the board to look at our community stakeholder list. And if you haven't yet, want to make sure that you're able to add any of your suggestions on community stakeholders that you think we should meet with. We will ask the search committee to do the same as well.
Beautiful. That's awesome. Yeah, just another plug to complete that list, and I'll also send it to the student reps, or I can't remember if I did, but I will. And just also thank you to Monica and Sylvia. It's just been they are so easy to work with and just are really paying attention to the search, but also the really important people across our city. And yeah, it's just been lovely so far. So I'm hopeful that we just keep it up. But thank you for being here tonight, and we'll be in touch very soon.
Fantastic. And before we go, just wanted to confirm the search committee meeting time on Thursday.
Mm-hmm. From 6:30 to 8. Is that?
Okay. 6:30 Eastern?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Thank you
Monica.
so much, everyone. Have a great evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.